The conference room fell silent. 20 executives froze, coffee cups suspended midair, as the words hung between Sarah Chen, CEO of Horizon Technologies, and Marcus Reeves, her newly hired creative director. No one dared breathe. The question had slipped from her lips before she could stop it, the culmination of weeks of confusion whenever Marcus's 4-year-old daughter visited the office. "Why does your daughter call me mommy?" The look on Sarah's face shifted from professional curiosity to shock as Marcus's eyes filled with tears. His answer would change everything. If you're drawn into this story already, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more emotional human stories that reveal the unexpected connections binding us together. Your support helps us continue sharing these powerful narratives. Sarah Chen had never planned on being anyone's mother. At 38, she had methodically built Horizon Technologies from a struggling startup to a Fortune 500 company. Her life was measured in quarterly reports, not birthday parties. Her calendar was filled with board meetings, not school pickups. She had made peace with her choices long ago, or so she thought. Marcus Reeves joined Horizon 6 months earlier, bringing exceptional talent and a quiet dignity that Sarah immediately respected. His portfolio was impeccable, his ideas revolutionary, but it was his dedication as a single father that first caught her attention. Sometimes, when meetings ran late, his daughter Lily would wait in the company daycare until Marcus could retrieve her. Sarah often passed by, watching the little girl with curious detachment. The first time it happened was on a rainy Tuesday. Sarah had stopped by the daycare to check on a renovation project when Lily looked up from her coloring book, dark eyes widening with recognition. "Mommy," she had exclaimed, running toward Sarah with outstretched arms. Sarah had frozen, looking around for the child's actual mother before realizing the girl was addressing her. Awkwardly, she had patted Lily's head and quickly made her exit, chalking it up to a child's confusion. But it happened again. And again. Each time, Marcus would appear moments later, gently correcting his daughter with a strange sadness in his eyes. "That's Ms. Chen, sweetheart. Remember?" And each time, Lily would look confused, insisting, "But that's mommy." After weeks of this peculiar ritual, Sarah couldn't contain her curiosity any longer. Following a particularly tense executive meeting about quarterly projections, she had asked Marcus to stay behind. The others filed out, leaving them alone in the glass-walled conference room overlooking the Seattle skyline. Rain streaked the windows, casting wavering shadows across their faces. "I need to ask you something," Sarah began, her usual confidence faltering. "It's about Lily." Marcus nodded, his expression guarded. "Why does your daughter call me mommy?" The question came out more bluntly than she'd intended. Marcus looked down at his hands, spread flat against the polished table. For a moment, Sarah thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "My wife, Elena, died when Lily was 2. Acute leukemia. It happened so fast we barely had time to process it." He paused, gathering himself. "Elena was a big fan of yours, actually. She followed your career for years, had every magazine you were featured in. She was also in tech, worked at Meridian Systems before Lily was born." Sarah nodded, remembering the company. A competitor, but one she respected. "After Elena died, I kept her photos everywhere so Lily wouldn't forget her. There was this one magazine cover, Forbes, I think, with you on the front. Elena had it framed in our home office." Marcus's voice cracked slightly. "Lily found it about a year ago and became convinced it was her mother. They had similar features, the same dark hair, similar smile. I tried to explain, but she's so young, she just couldn't understand why her mommy was in a picture frame but not in our home." Sarah felt something shift inside her chest, a tightening she couldn't name. "When I got the job here and she saw you in person that first time, it was like her whole world made sense again. Her mommy had come back." Marcus finally looked up, his eyes red-rimmed but steady. "I know I should have corrected her more firmly, explained better. But seeing her so happy after so much confusion and grief, I couldn't take that from her. Not right away. I was planning to talk to you about it, find a gentle way to help her understand, but I kept putting it off. Sarah sat perfectly still, her carefully constructed professional facade crumbling. She thought of the little girl's face lighting up each time she saw her, the pure joy in her expression. She thought of her own mother, who had died when Sarah was 12, and how desperately she had searched for her in the faces of teachers and friends' parents for years afterward. "I'm so sorry," Marcus continued. "I know it's inappropriate and unprofessional. If you want to file a complaint with HR, I completely understand. Or if you'd prefer I look for another position." "No," Sarah interrupted, surprising herself with the force of her response. "That won't be necessary." The silence between them stretched, filled with unspoken possibilities. "What if?" Sarah began, then stopped, uncertain how to continue. Business decisions were easy, human ones were infinitely more complex. What if we don't correct her just yet? What if we give her time to adjust to the idea gradually? Marcus looked at her with disbelief. "You'd be willing to do that?" Sarah nodded slowly. "I lost my mother too, when I was young. I know what it's like to search for her everywhere." She took a deep breath. "Maybe I could get to know Lily a little better. Help her understand in time. If that's okay with you." For the first time since she'd known him, Marcus smiled fully, the grief in his eyes lightened by something that looked remarkably like hope. "I think Elena would have liked that very much." That conversation marked the beginning of a gradual transformation in Sarah's life. It started small, stopping by the daycare more often, learning Lily's favorite colors, purple and silver, discovering the names of all her stuffed animals. Sarah found herself looking forward to these brief interactions, these glimpses into a world so different from boardrooms and investor meetings. Weeks passed. Sarah invited Marcus and Lily to the company picnic, where she discovered Lily's talent for finding four-leaf clovers and Marcus's terrible but enthusiastic volleyball skills. She learned that Marcus made heart-shaped pancakes every Sunday morning, a tradition started by Elena that he couldn't bear to break. She found herself saving interesting rocks and feathers she spotted on her morning runs, knowing Lily collected them in a special box under her bed. 3 months after their conference room conversation, Sarah invited them to dinner at her home, a sleek, minimalist penthouse that suddenly seemed sterile through Lily's curious eyes. The little girl had wandered from room to room, finally declaring with 4-year-old honesty, "Your house needs more colors, Mommy." Sarah had laughed, surprising herself. "I think you might be right." The following weekend, Sarah found herself in an art supply store, purchasing canvases and finger paints. Marcus helped her move her expensive furniture aside, covering her pristine hardwood floors with drop cloths. They spent the afternoon creating abstract masterpieces with Lily, their hands covered in primary colors, laughter echoing off the high ceilings. When Lily pressed her tiny paint-covered hand to Sarah's cheek, leaving a perfect blue handprint, Sarah didn't even flinch. Instead, she pressed her own larger handprint onto Lily's other cheek, making the little girl giggle with delight. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep on Sarah's couch, Marcus and Sarah sat on her balcony, watching the city lights below. "Thank you," Marcus said simply. "For all of this." Sarah looked at her paint-stained hands. "I should be thanking you." "And Lily." She hesitated, then added, "I never thought I wanted children. I always believed my company was enough." "And now?" Marcus asked quietly. "Now I'm not so sure." She met his gaze. "I've been missing something I didn't even know I needed." Their relationship evolved gradually, cautiously. Both carried wounds they were afraid to reopen. Both had built walls they were hesitant to dismantle. But Lily pulled them forward with the innocent persistence only a child can maintain. 6 months later, Sarah found herself sitting on a park bench, watching Marcus push Lily on a swing. The little girl's laughter carried across the playground, pure and uninhibited. Sarah felt a presence beside her and turned to find an elderly woman smiling at the same scene. "Your daughter has a beautiful laugh," the woman commented. Sarah opened her mouth to correct her, then stopped. "Yes," she said instead. "She does." That evening, after Lily was tucked into bed in the guest room that had slowly accumulated stuffed animals and picture books, Sarah and Marcus sat at her kitchen table, a bottle of wine between them. "The strangest thing happened today," Sarah began, telling him about the woman at the park. "I didn't correct her. I didn't want to." Marcus reached across the table, taking her hand. "Elena would have liked you, you know. She always said you were changing the world for women in tech." "I wish I could have met her," Sarah said honestly. "In a way, you have. Through Lily." Marcus squeezed her hand. "She has her mother's determination. Her kindness." Sarah felt tears threatening and blinked them away. "I'm not trying to replace her, Marcus. I want you to know that." "I know." His voice was gentle. "But maybe there's room in Lily's life, in our lives, for more than one kind of love." A year after that first confrontation in the conference room, Sarah found herself standing in a small ceremony room at City Hall, wearing a simple cream dress, holding a bouquet of wildflowers Lily had helped pick that morning. Marcus stood beside her, his eyes never leaving her face as they exchanged vows. Lily bounced excitedly between them, occasionally interrupting the judge with important observations about the butterflies outside the window. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Lily tugged on Sarah's dress. "Does this mean you're really my mommy now?" she asked, her face serious. Sarah knelt down, meeting the little girl's eyes. "I will never replace your first mommy, who loved you very much," she said carefully. "But if you'll let me, I would be honored to be your second mommy, who loves you just as much in her own way." Lily considered this with the gravity only a 5-year-old can muster before nodding decisively. "I think I can have 2 mommies. One in heaven and one here." Sarah pulled her into a tight embrace, feeling Marcus's arms encircle them both. Over Lily's head, she caught his eye, seeing in it the same wonder she felt, that sometimes life's most precious gifts come disguised as its greatest challenges. 2 years later, Sarah sat in another conference room, facing her board of directors. The company had nearly doubled in size under her leadership, expanding into new markets and pioneering technologies that were changing their industry. But today's announcement had nothing to do with business metrics or strategic acquisitions. "As you know, I've always believed in Horizon's mission to create technology that brings people together," she began. "What I've learned over the past 3 years is that the most important connections aren't digital, they're human." She placed her hand on her slightly rounded stomach, visible even under her tailored blazer. "Marcus and I are expecting a baby in the spring. And while I remain completely committed to this company, I'll be restructuring my schedule to ensure I can be present for both my family and Horizon." The board members exchanged glances, some concerned, others supportive. Sarah had anticipated resistance, had prepared counterarguments and contingency plans. But before anyone could speak, the door to the conference room burst open and Lily ran in, followed by an apologetic-looking Marcus. "Sorry to interrupt," he said quickly. "Daycare called, Lily wasn't feeling well, and she insisted on seeing you before we went home." Lily climbed into Sarah's lap without hesitation, wrapping her arms around her neck. "My teacher said the baby is the size of a lemon now," she announced to the room at large. "I'm going to be a big sister." The tension in the room dissolved as several board members smiled. Sarah caught the eye of Janet Winters, the oldest member of the board and someone who had initially opposed Sarah's appointment as CEO, believing her too young and inexperienced. Now Janet nodded slightly, a look of understanding passing between them. "Perhaps," Janet said, addressing the room, "this is an opportunity for Horizon to lead by example. To show that success in business and success in family life aren't mutually exclusive." Later that evening, as Sarah sat on their living room floor helping Lily with a jigsaw puzzle, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. 3 years ago, she would have scoffed at the idea of leaving work early for a child's soccer game or rearranging an investor meeting because of a school play. Her identity had been so completely wrapped up in her professional achievements that she couldn't imagine finding fulfillment elsewhere. Now, watching Lily's face scrunch in concentration as she tried to fit puzzle pieces together, Sarah felt a completeness she had never known was possible. Her company was still thriving, still innovating, but it no longer defined her entirely. She had expanded rather than diminished, her capacity for love, for patience, for seeing the world through new eyes growing with each day. Marcus entered the room, carrying mugs of hot chocolate topped with the mini marshmallows Lily insisted were essential. He sat beside them on the floor, his shoulder touching Sarah's, a casual intimacy that still made her heart beat faster. "Daddy," Lily said suddenly, looking up from her puzzle. "Remember when I thought Mommy was my first mommy because of the picture?" Marcus nodded, his expression softening. "I do, sweetheart. I was just a little kid then," Lily said with the superiority of her 7 years. "Now I understand better. My first mommy is watching from heaven, and my second mommy is here." She placed her small hand on Sarah's stomach. "And soon my baby brother or sister will be here too." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. Pregnancy hormones, she told herself, though she knew it was more than that. "That's right, Lily-bug. I'm glad you asked Daddy that question," Lily continued matter-of-factly. "In the big room with all the windows. The one where you were crying." Sarah looked at Marcus in surprise. "How do you know about that?" "I was hiding under the table," Lily admitted without a trace of remorse. "I was playing spy." Marcus laughed, shaking his head. "Of course you were." "It was a good question," Lily declared, returning to her puzzle. "The best question ever. Because now we're a family." Later that night, as Marcus slept beside her, Sarah lay awake, one hand resting on her growing belly. She thought about the question that had changed everything: why does your daughter call me Mommy? And how terrified she'd been to ask it. How certain she'd been that the answer would be awkward, uncomfortable, possibly even career-damaging. Instead, it had been the beginning of the most profound journey of her life. A journey that taught her that strength came in many forms, not just in boardroom victories and market dominance, but in the courage to open yourself to love, to vulnerability, to the messy, beautiful complexity of family. As she felt the first flutter of movement beneath her hand, Sarah smiled in the darkness. Some questions, she had learned, weren't meant to be answered with words alone, but with lives transformed, with hearts expanded, with love that continued to grow in ways you never expected. And that was the most powerful answer of all.